There are watches that tell time, and then there are watches that tell a story. Watches that represent decades, sometimes centuries, of accumulated human skill, artistry, and obsession with mechanical perfection. Watches that the moment you fasten them to your wrist, something shifts. The way you carry yourself, the way a room responds to you. That is what true luxury watchmaking delivers. And in 2026, the world's finest manufacturers are producing timepieces so extraordinary, so breathtakingly crafted, that calling them watches almost feels like an insult. Today we are counting down the top 10 luxury watches that define true elegance in 2026. Not just expensive watches, not just famous names, watches that genuinely justify every single dollar of their price tags through heritage, innovation, and craftsmanship that borders on the supernatural. Let's get into it. Number 10. Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso Tribute Enamel. We open our list with a watch that is less a timepiece and more a wearable painting. The Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso has been flipping its iconic rectangular case since 1931, originally designed so polo players could protect the dial during matches, and the Tribute Enamel Edition elevates this legendary concept to pure art. The reversible caseback features hand-painted Grand Few enamel miniatures executed by JLC's in-house master enamelers, a craft so delicate and demanding that a single piece can take weeks to complete. One wrong brushstroke on still molten enamel means starting entirely from scratch. The manual winding caliber 822 movement on the front side is beautifully finished and utterly reliable. At around $25,000 to $40,000 depending on the specific enamel motif, the Reverso Tribute Enamel is not just a watch, it is a commission. A piece of miniature art that happens to keep extraordinary time. There is simply nothing else like it in the watch world. Number 9. IWC Portugieser Perpetual Calendar. IWC Schaffhausen has been making serious, technically ambitious watches in northeastern Switzerland since 1868, and the Portugieser Perpetual Calendar is their most celebrated achievement in classical complications. At 44 mm, the platinum or rose gold case frames a dial architecture that is a masterpiece of information design, displaying date, day, month, year, and moon phase in a layout so elegantly organized that reading it feels completely intuitive, despite the incredible complexity underneath. The Perpetual Calendar mechanism, powered by the in-house caliber 5261.5, requires no manual date correction until the year 2100, automatically accounting for months of different lengths and leap years with absolute mechanical precision. At around $45,000 to $60,000 depending on precious metal choice, the Portugieser Perpetual Calendar is the watch for those who understand that true luxury is not about how something looks, it is about how something works, invisibly, perfectly, and indefinitely. Number 8. Vacheron Constantin Overseas Chronograph. Vacheron Constantin is the oldest continuously operating watch manufacturer in the world, producing fine timepieces without interruption since 1755. Let that sink in for a moment. The Overseas Chronograph represents this legendary maison at its most versatile, a luxury sports watch that transitions from boardroom to dive boat without losing a single degree of elegance. The 42.5 mm stainless steel or precious metal case features the iconic Maltese cross motif on the bezel, a nod to Vacheron's ancient hallmark, while the integrated bracelet is engineered to such a fine standard that it adjusts to your wrist with a precision most watchmakers dream about. Inside beats the in-house caliber 5200 with column wheel chronograph and 52-hour power reserve. Each overseas chronograph ships with 3 interchangeable straps, metal bracelet, rubber, and leather, making it arguably the most versatile luxury watch available. At around $35,000 to $50,000, owning a Vacheron is joining a 270-year conversation about what excellence truly means. Number 7. A Lange Söhne Saxonia Thin. If Jaeger-LeCoultre is art and IWC is engineering, then A Lange Söhne is philosophy. The German manufacturer from Glashütte produces watches in quantities so limited and to standards so exacting that many collectors consider them the pinnacle of all watchmaking, above even Patek Philippe. The Saxonia Thin makes the case more powerfully than almost any other watch in the collection. At just 5.9 mm thick, the 40 mm white or pink gold case disappears on the wrist with breathtaking elegance. The silver dial with its railway track minute ring, blued steel hands, and outsized date display, a Lange signature, achieves perfect visual harmony through proportion and restraint alone. But it is what you cannot see that matters most. The hand-finished German silver three-quarter plate movement visible through the caseback features beveling, polishing, and engraving so precise it requires magnification to fully appreciate. At around $20,000 to $28,000, the Saxonia Thin is the watch that makes watchmakers from other houses genuinely uncomfortable, because they know what it takes to finish a movement like this, and they know almost nobody does it better. Number 6. Richard Mille RM 11 Row 3. Richard Mille divides the watch world like almost no other brand. Critics call the prices obscene, collectors call them justified. And once you understand what goes into an RM 11 Row 3, the argument tilts decisively toward the collectors. The RM 1103 is a flyback chronograph with annual calendar complication built from a tonneau-shaped case in grade 5 titanium or carbon TPT, materials borrowed directly from Formula One engineering, weighing just 40 grams complete with strap. The skeletonized dial exposes the extraordinary movement architecture beneath, where every component is hand-beveled, polished, and decorated to a standard that rivals the finest traditional Swiss watches, while simultaneously incorporating materials that those traditional manufacturers have never touched. Richard Mille's celebrity clientele, from Rafael Nadal wearing one on court to Pharrell Williams collecting dozens, has created a cultural cachet that drives demand far beyond supply. At around $150,000 to $200,000, and climbing, the RM 1103 is luxury watchmaking's most provocative statement, and in 2026, the argument for its brilliance has never been stronger. Number 5. Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Tourbillon Extra Thin. The Royal Oak changed watchmaking forever when Gerald Genta sketched it on a napkin in 1971, a luxury sports watch in stainless steel with an integrated bracelet and an exposed movement dial that the establishment said would never sell. 50-plus years later, the Royal Oak is the most imitated design in watchmaking, and the original remains untouchable. The Royal Oak Tourbillon Extra Thin takes Genta's iconic architecture and elevates it to its absolute apex. At just 8.1 mm thick, an engineering achievement that required years of development, the tourbillon movement floats visibly within the Grande Tapisserie dial in a display of mechanical theater that is genuinely breathtaking. The finishing of the case, with its alternating polished and brushed surfaces meeting at razor-sharp angles, remains the industry benchmark for metal craftsmanship. At approximately $145,000 in stainless steel, which immediately trades on the secondary market at significant premiums, the Royal Oak Tourbillon Extra Thin is the watch that collectors spend years on waiting lists to acquire, and every single one of them will tell you it was worth the wait. Number 4. Rolex Day-Date 40 in Platinum. There is a reason world leaders, business titans, and cultural icons have worn the Rolex Day-Date since its introduction in 1956. No other watch has ever communicated achievement, authority, and taste with such quiet, universal confidence. The Day-Date 40 in Platinum is the ultimate expression of this legendary reference, the only Rolex crafted in 950 Platinum, featuring the ice blue dial that Rolex reserves exclusively for this precious metal. The President bracelet, with its semicircular three-piece links, is one of the most recognized bracelet designs in jewelry history. Inside beats the caliber 3255, Rolex's most advanced movement featuring 14 patents, 70-hour power reserve, and 10 times the precision tolerance of standard chronometer certification. At around $75,000 to $85,000 retail, the Platinum Day-Date is the watch you wear when you have genuinely arrived, not to show others, but because you know, and that knowledge is enough. Number 3. Patek Philippe Grand Complications 5270G Perpetual Calendar Chronograph. Patek Philippe makes the finest watches in the world. This is not opinion, it is the consensus of the watch collecting community, auction houses, and competing manufacturers who have studied Patek's work for generations. The 5270G Perpetual Calendar. Chronograph is Patek operating at the summit of their capabilities, combining a column wheel chronograph with a perpetual calendar and a hand-assembled movement of staggering complexity and beauty. The white gold case at 41mm frames a gorgeous blue dial with individual registers that present date, day, month, moon phase, and leap year in perfect visual hierarchy. The caliber CHR 29535 PSQ movement required over a decade of development. Every component, down to individual screws, is hand-chamfered, polished, and decorated to a standard that Patek's craftspeople spend years training to achieve. At approximately $120,000 to $150,000 retail, with secondary market values frequently exceeding that significantly, the 5270G is not a purchase. It is a declaration of values, a statement that you understand the difference between price and worth. Number 2. FP Journe Tourbillon Souverain Vertical. François-Paul Journe is a living legend. A watchmaker so technically gifted and philosophically uncompromising that the collecting world's most sophisticated buyers have elevated him to near mythological status. The Tourbillon Souverain Vertical is Journe's solution to a problem that has challenged watchmakers for centuries. Traditional tourbillons rotate in the horizontal plane, partially correcting for gravitational errors. Journe's vertical tourbillon rotates in the vertical plane, the orientation in which a watch actually spends most of its time on the wrist, making the gravitational correction dramatically more effective in real-world wearing conditions. The movement is made almost entirely from brass and gold, no steel, and features Journe's signature remontoir d'égalité, a constant force mechanism that delivers perfectly regulated power to the escapement, regardless of mainspring tension. In a tantalum case with that deeply personal, slightly idiosyncratic dial layout that Journe has made entirely his own, this watch is produced in quantities so small that many collectors never get the opportunity to purchase one. At around $250,000 to $350,000, the Tourbillon Souverain Vertical is the watch that the world's greatest collectors quietly consider the pinnacle of independent watchmaking. And they are almost certainly right. Number 1. Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 C1. Nothing in luxury watchmaking, not the Royal Oak, not the Daytona, not any Vacheron or Lange, generates the level of desire, reverence, and frankly irrational passion that the Patek Philippe Nautilus 571101A in stainless steel provokes. Designed by Gerald Genta in 1976, the same genius behind the Royal Oak, the Nautilus was conceived as the luxury sports watch for those who truly understood watches. Its porthole-inspired case, horizontally embossed Clos de Paris dial, and integrated bracelet create a silhouette so perfectly balanced and proportioned that it has defied every trend and every competitor for nearly 5 decades. When Patek announced the discontinuation of the Blue Dial 5711 in 2021, the watch world reacted as though a great institution had fallen. Secondary market prices for pristine examples now range from $80,000 to well over $150,000 for a watch that retailed at approximately $34,193. The final olive green limited edition, as we have discussed, commands prices approaching and sometimes exceeding $200,000. In 2026, the Nautilus 5711 is no longer simply a watch. It is the definitive symbol of taste, discernment, and the understanding that true luxury is always, always defined by what you cannot simply buy. The Nautilus is the greatest luxury watch of the modern era, and its legacy is only growing with every passing year.